Oh my god. Oh my god. I just finished reading A Shard of Ice maybe 40 minutes ago. It's so good. It's so good. Um, I guess just to get in, like, to start, the themes of this short story are just anytime I can get more information on Yennefer and Geralt, especially having read the series two full times now without this short story's context. Wow. Um, I mean, just like Sapkowski is a genius. The level, no one I've ever read writes on the same level as this guy. So much of what's said isn't said out loud. Like the conclusions you have to draw yourself, it's so refreshing. I know I talked about that in the intro video, but like with this short story especially, it just felt so real. Just how Geralt and Yennefer are with their emotions. It just feels so real. And this short story, it sucks. It feels so awful. Like Geralt is so down. He's in this like he's in this town he doesn't want to be in. Everything is weighing on him. I mean, it's just really good. And I think that, so as I mentioned, I'm going to get right into things. As I mentioned in the last video, these aren't going to be 36 minutes long. And this was really, I think maybe the shortest short story we've had so far. Um, I don't remember any in Last Wish being so short. So there's not a lot to cover here, but at the same time there is because so much is said in just like ten little sub chapters. Like it's crazy. So first things first, first kind of thing that I marked down in my notes was this first time we see the black kestrel. Um, the black kestrel sitting on the antlers beat its wings and snapped its curved beak. Yennefer turned her head away and sighed, very sadly. Yen, it's nothing, Geralt, she said, kissing him. It's nothing. Or that's not the first time, but that's the one I marked down. Because what's the deal with that? Obviously becomes very important later on in the story. We get the little at the same time that Geralt and Yennefer are sharing this bed together. Uh, we get this Winter Queen legend. Among the elves, there is a legend about a Winter Queen who travels the land during snowstorms in a sleigh drawn by white horses. As she rides, she casts hard, sharp, tiny shards of ice around her, and woe betide anyone whose eye or heart is pierced by one of them. That person is then lost. No longer will anything gladden them. They find anything that doesn't have the whiteness of snow ugly, obnoxious, repugnant. They will not find peace, will abandon everything, and will set off after the queen, in pursuit of their dream and love. Naturally, they will never find it, and will die of longing. Apparently here, in this town, something like that happened in times long gone. And Geralt being Geralt, oh, there's no such thing as that legend. Elves just like to be dramatic. It's just the wild hunt going through on the horses. That's what he says. This might be the first time we hear about the wild hunt. It's a pretty description of the hideous phenomenon that is the wild hunt, the curse of several regions, an inexplicable collective madness compelling people to join a spectral cavalcade rushing across the sky. I don't know if this is the first time we hear about the wild hunt, but it's so very Geralt. where everything has some kind of simple explanation. It's the same thing that we get in The Edge of the World, where Geralt says people like to invent monsters to feel better about themselves. So he's always looking for that grain of truth. See right there, that little grain of truth in all the legends and prophecies and whatnot. But yeah, that is the Winter Queen. And something that kind of struck me is even just hearing this prophecy or this story for the first time, that's just how Geralt feels in this story. And Yennefer says, obviously, what I to give I to Vale is a shard of ice in the Elven speech. But it's just interesting that right off bat, it feels like Geralt has been struck by a shard of ice because everything here, like, no longer will anything gladden them. He's depressed. He's depressed in this little town. I don't know. So I found that interesting. The conversation with Istrid and Geralt, so much happens here. You can expect me to talk at the end of this video about how I feel Yennefer is represented in the first season of The Witcher TV show, at least what I remember from it. Um, and obviously Istrid is a part of that. So I'll get into that towards the end. But as far as this conversation between Istrid and Geralt, there's a lot to cover. So Istrid and Geralt have this conversation, and to start off, they're talking about their backgrounds. And I love this little superiority complex Istrid thing that Istrid gets, where, you know, his masters have always beaten into him the importance of magic, the particulars of it. He has worked his entire life to become as talented as he is in magic, and Geralt does his little Witcher signs and stuff like that. Um, and Geralt even admits later on when him and Yennefer are creating the Kestrel, he's like, man, my signs are kind of nothing compared to this. But Istrid has this superiority complex towards Geralt, says, yeah, I don't really like you because you play at things that I've dedicated my life to. Which, by the way, as we are going to find out, this isn't about magic. This is about Yen. This is about Yennefer. Yeah, so Istrid does this whole thing about, you know, oh, I'm so like I worked my whole life for this and you toy around with it. And Geralt, hey, this isn't about magic, is it? This is about Yennefer. And Istrid's like, yep, it is about Yennefer actually. And this is where things kind of fly off the handle. Basically, he's like, I don't want to commit to Yennefer anymore, or I don't want to be non-committal anymore. I asked to be with her forever. And Geralt's like, wow, you were so sincere about that. And one of these quotes mentions a word that I did not know. I had to look this one up. Um, Geralt says, why are you telling me this, Istrid? What drives you apart from this admirable but astonishing candor, so rarely seen among members of your profession? What lies behind it? And the sorcerer sighs and goes, prosaicness. For you see, your presence hinders Yennefer in making a decision. I thus request you to remove yourself. I looked up prosaicness because I didn't know what that meant. And it was really interesting that that word kind of just means everything is dull, everything has no meaning anymore. And that is everything in this town is prosaic. This town is a shard of ice in itself. So I found it really interesting that Istrid used that word specifically, at least in this translation, because everything here is prosaic, including Geralt. Another part of this Istrid Geralt conversation that I wanted to mention is so much of this time Istrid spends telling Geralt, oh, you don't have any human emotions, you're a mutant. This is just like, why would she spend any time for you? Like, you have to understand that you are a fleeting romance to her. A fleeting romance, a passing fascination, at best a whim, an adventure of which Yenna has had hundreds, because Yenna loves to play with emotions. She's impulsive and unpredictable in her whims. That's what I take you for. Since having exchanged a few words with you, I've rejected the theory that she treats you entirely as an object. And believe me, that happens with her quite often. Oh, brother, Istrid, are you sure? Are you sure it's not you that has felt betrayed or as an object by Yennefer? Because you had to ask Yennefer to be with you, and she's taking all this time. She brought her other man here before making this decision. Sure that you're not the fleeting romance? Are you sure about that? Maybe this is just some projection? Like I said, I don't want to spend so much time summarizing. We know how this chapter ends. Geralt being like, well, I didn't want to say that I have more rights than you in this situation, but, Yen and I had sex last night. And Istrid, this is tough. This is a tough blow for Geralt. Istrid goes, well, that's funny because me and Yennefer had sex this morning. Damn, Geralt. They just walk off. Yeah, you need to walk that one off because that's tough. Even the mayor, even the mayor knows that Yennefer and Istrid be fucking. Even the mayor. The mayor's assistant, Paragrib or whatever. Oh, Istrid's at home right now. Why wouldn't he want to be at the why would he be at the Diggins when he's and the mayor cuts him off? Because he's boning your girl. And then we get to this conversation that him and Yennefer have. In this chapter 5 in this short story, oh, there's so much here. I could do a whole video on this chapter, I feel. And it's like 3 pages long. But everything said here is so important. Yennefer being Yennefer says, get out of bed, sit down. We're gonna let's talk about this. Um, and she says at one point, we understand each other wordlessly. She's talking about Istrid. He can give me support, and who knows, perhaps there'll come a day when I'll need it. And above all, he loves me, I think. And we know Yennefer further on. I'll skip ahead a little bit to the part where the Winter Queen comes more into effect. She says, I, the Elf Queen, desire warmth. That is my secret, which is why every year my sleigh carries me amidst a blizzard through some little town, and every year someone dazzled by my spell gets their harness caught in my runners. Oh my god. She has had all of these fleeting romances. Geralt and Istrid both acknowledge that. Istrid even goes so far in the last chapter as to say, those ones don't even count because she just keeps coming back to you and I. So she has all of these, and this is exactly why she's saying it. It's because I desire warmth. I am the Snow Queen, and I desire warmth, but warmth melts the shards of ice that I have planted in those passersby, and then they see me for what I really am. They get bored. My sweetheart, stabbed with that little icy star, suddenly becomes an ordinary nobody, and I become, in his thawed out eyes, no better than all the other mortal women. Oh my gosh. This is why Last Wish, the short story Last Wish, is so important. Because it's not even a lot. It's like one line, maybe a paragraph in there, where Geralt sees Yennefer as she truly was, a hunchback before she was a sorcerer. And everything Yennefer feels about herself, you can see all of that from her being a hunchback. Nobody, she truly believes that once the ice thaws, nobody will want to be with her. Because what does she truly have to offer? Another piece of this conversation that's so important is while we're answering questions, um, Geralt says, Yen, you promised to answer my questions, questions I don't even have to ask. One remains, the most important. The one I've never asked you, which I've been afraid to ask. Answer it. And she says she's incapable. Uh, no one can know a sorceress well. She says, my answer is I don't know. But what kind of answer is that? The question obviously being, do you love me? And her answer is, I don't know. And then she asks Geralt the same question. The question I've never asked you, the one I've always feared. I won't ask you it this time either, but answer it. Because I greatly desire to hear your answer. It's the one word, the only word you've never told me. Utter it, Geralt, please. He says, I cannot, Yen. My answer would just be a word which doesn't express a feeling, doesn't express an emotion, because I'm bereft of them. A word which would be nothing but the sound made when you strike a cold, empty skull. He tells her, I can't tell you I love you, because that's just a word. I can't describe the feeling. Saying it as a word would just mimic the sound made when you strike a cold, empty skull. This guy doesn't have emotions? Fuck that, Istrid. This guy, he, oh my god. And Yen says, okay, Yen knows he loves her based on that answer. And I would too. And Geralt says, you've decided. Don't lie. I know you. I can see it in your eyes. Um, but as we know, this is when Geralt and Yen create a kestrel together, which obviously means we can assume Yennefer and Istrid created a kestrel together, and that's the first one that we saw. Geralt says, two black kestrels, created by magic. I presume you need them both. She says, you presume right, she said with effort. I need them both. I was wrong to believe one would suffice. And Yennefer starts asking, what's the essence of truth? What's the fact? What is the lie? Um, and Geralt says, I don't know, Yen, tell me. And she says, I can't. But asks the kestrel, what is the essence of truth? Truth, the kestrel said, is a shard of ice. Oh man, I'm getting back to this in 1 second. Geralt and Istrid decide there's only one way to come through this. There can only be one. So they set a time, tomorrow. And that night, Geralt is in some bar drinking, and this shard of ice, this prosaicness, has him. He doesn't feel anything. He feels so cold. And he gives a man this coin. And he goes out, no weapons. This is really interesting. He goes out, no weapons, but his body, the survival instinct, when he gets jumped, is still to reach for his sword and to reach for the dagger. And he kind of confirms in his own head that, yeah, I can't overcome these mutant, you know, impulses, which have kind of like, I don't know, that idea has just been planted in his brain by Istrid. It's not like, and Yennefer even tells him, don't say that about yourself. Quit saying you don't have emotions. Quit saying you're nothing more than a mutant. But this man says, after the thugs that try to jump him run away, this man says, hey, next time, uh, don't drag other people into killing yourself. Just hang yourself in the stable from your reins. Brutal. But Geralt and Istrid have this confrontation, and this is where we finally see the Kestrel come into play. So Geralt and Istrid finally have this confrontation, and Istrid brings a sword, and he has a Kestrel on his shoulder. Geralt says, Istrid, why do you have a sword? You are a grand sorcerer, and you put all this time into your spells. Why would you bring a sword to this fight? And then Geralt realizes there's no chance Istrid wins. That's why he brought the sword. He doesn't want to win. And Geralt says, what's going on, bud? And Istrid tells him, uh, I got this note from the kestrel. He says, the kestrel, you ask? It came at dawn, wet from the rain. It brought a letter, a very short one. I know it by heart. Farewell, Val. Forgive me. There are gifts which one may not accept, and there is nothing in me I could repay you with. And that is the truth, Val. Truth is a shard of ice. So this guy gets this letter and decides he'd rather die than not be with Yennefer. But we know, and Geralt knows, that Yen and Geralt created a kestrel, a second kestrel, last night. Yennefer came here with Istrid and Yen's kestrel, and she intended on giving him that letter. But when she found out that Geralt truly loves her in that conversation, where he says, I can't say it, I can't put a word to it, because a word can never describe the feeling. When she found out that he loved her, she made the second kestrel because she truly believes that is a gift she cannot pay back. Damn. So Geralt knows, and Geralt says, I'm not going to fight you. And then he says, if you're going to kill yourself, don't bring others into it. Just throw your reins over the beam in the stable and do it that way. Um, and he knows what awaits him at home. And it's that letter from the Kestrel that says the exact same thing it said to Istrid. There's so many levels. I don't know. There's so much to read into with these short stories. That's what I like about Sapkowski. And that's why I can make a 25-minute video based off of, I don't know, a 50-page short story. Because he writes characters so well. There's so much to talk about. Motivations, everything. I mentioned I want to talk about uh, Yennefer's treatment in the Netflix series. I don't know if I'll talk about this a lot during the Last Wish short story video, since that will be before this video in the Witcher Companion series. But, I'm recording this one first because I'm reading sort of this thing right now. But I really, really enjoy everything I remember them doing with Yennefer in the first season. Considering like her backstory, hunchback stuff. I mean, technically she came from a rich family and she was part of a poor family in the series. That doesn't really bother me all that much. But the hunchback stuff, Istrid, because in the show, Yen is kind of, in my opinion, the fleeting romance of Istrid. And I think that adds so well to this short story. Having read it now, when I figured that this was Yennefer focused, I really was hoping that Istrid would be involved or that it would give more of that backstory. So I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised to see Istrid, and I just think that this short story adds to the first season backstory stuff with Yennefer. I think everything they did with that was actually pretty good. I was happy with it at least. Maybe my opinions will change when I go through the rest of these short stories, or maybe if I ever watch that show again. It's just impossible to rewatch a season of that show. But maybe I'll bite the bullet while I'm making these so I can talk about them more. But yeah, that was Shard of Ice. I put this up there at maybe one of my favorites, which is strange because it's not a fan favorite. I mean, I get it. There's not really a lot of action. It's all very character motivations. And I think a lot of men who read The Witcher don't like Yennefer because she flips the standard fairy tale tropes about, the princesses and the damsel in distress. She is not that girl. And I think a lot of men don't really appreciate that when they read these books. But getting more info on her backstory in this short story was such a treat. And I can't wait to read through the series with this short story as context. Anyways, that's all for this one. I'm still like at 30 minutes before I edit it down. I'm still at like 30 minutes. So hopefully it's a little shorter than the last one, but I'm finding my groove here, I think, eventually. Anyways, next time, the eternal flame. I'll see you then.